welcome back to Once Upon a Shredder. I'm Lance. Today I will be replacing the power tubes in my Rev Generator 120 Mark III. Not because I have to replace them, because I simply want to replace them. I've already replaced the preamp tubes with Tung Sol preamp tubes, so I sold those at a really good deal on Reverb, and I've replaced those already with the Tung Sol preamp tubes. Today I'm going to be replacing the power tubes with Tung Sol power tubes. I also wanted to mention that I opted for the Apex Matched set, or the Apex Matched technique, so you pay a tiny little extra for that. And this one says it has some transcode, a sticker on it, and it says that it's matched with a little asterisk L, whatever that means. So this is the fancy schmancy Apex Matched quad set of tubes, power tubes. All right, first order of business. Well, first order of business is getting this on my head, which is a headlamp. Headlamps are indispensable in the studio. If you don't have a headlamp handy in your studio, get one now because you will thank me later. Next step is to put latex gloves on because I don't want to handle the tubes with my bare hands. Not that there's anything wrong with that per se. There's probably some myth surrounding human skin or human oils touching a vacuum tube and what effect that might have on it, but I have no direct information along those lines. I don't necessarily ascribe to the myth, but you know what? There's really no practical reason for me to need to touch them with my skin, so why not use gloves? So that's the first thing we're going to do. Next thing we're going to do is take off the screws. You need to take off the back plate here, and the reason why the back plate has to come off is because that's the only way to access the tubes. Something else I like to do in the studio, have handy, especially since I do guitar tech work as well, is I have this little, I believe I got this at Stu Mac, but I'm not totally positive. The reason why I have this is so that I can do things like this, and that way all the screws are in one place. I have no fear of losing them or them disappearing on the studio floor. Anyway, let's continue with removing the screws. And now we remove the back plate and just gently set it aside. Set it over here. Using the handy razor knife, let's go ahead and cut the Apex tape on here. A little awkward to handle the boxes while they're all taped together. It's kind of a shame because it looks so fancy. All right, first order of business is to remove the existing ones. Let me see if I can get a better picture with my phone while we're doing this. All right, this is what I'm talking about. You see that little metal sort of chrome steel ring around the bottom there. At first glance you might think, oh, that's awkward, I have to remove those screws in order to get the tubes out, but that's not really the case. Those are actually springs. And what I need to do is on each side of those springs I need to push down on that to remove the tube. The reason for those springs is twofold. One is that it holds the tube in place, but also, if you notice the angle of the metal, it sort of kind of very gently digs into the side of the plastic base there of the tube, thereby making it difficult if you simply wanted to yank them straight out. You really do have to push down on either side of that spring to remove the tube. And that's what I'm going to do. So we are removing the first of the two tubes. I'm going to take my finger here, I'm going to push down and pull up. So that's tube number one. A lovely, lovely, lovely power tube. 6L6 GCM-STR red base. Indeed, very nice. Replacing it with the Tung Sol equivalent. Before we do that, let us remove all of the tubes. I need to remove the remaining tubes. Need to place them somewhere where I'm not going to damage them and they are also not going to roll off. So I think that's probably as good as any. I'm putting it over here on my amp head shelf. This is also the place where the camera is. Let's continue removing the power tubes. And lastly, let's remove this last one. I wish I had one extra hand. All right. And that is it for the original lovely, lovely tubes. All right, so now we are going to install the Tung Sol power tubes. All right, so now we put in the new tubes. So I need to align it with the notch. That would be like this. And then I gently push it down in, seats it nice and firmly. You can see that the little spring here not only holds it from going side to side, also because of the downward angle of the steel, I'm assuming that's steel, that it sort of slightly digs into the edge of the base of the tube there, so that even further secures it from easily coming out anyway. Now you may be asking, how do I know which tube to put into which slot? Well, it's a matched quad set. I specifically ordered a matched set of 4, which is what the manual recommends. The manual recommends that it be a matched set. So I ordered a matched set, and if you order a matched set of 4, it doesn't matter. If you order 2 matched pairs instead of 1 matched quad, if you order 2 matched pairs, they have instructions on which of the sockets to put each of the matched pairs. If I'd ordered matched pairs, then I'd put 1 matched pair across these 2, and then the other matched pair across the other 2. The reason I know that is because they said you know which one is the pair because there's this hole right here, and that's I believe that's the biasing adjustment. If you have to do some manual bias adjustment, that is done by way of the screw that's down inside this hole. But they said in the manual that this hole is how you would tell which are the pairs if I was dealing with 2 matched pairs instead of a single matched quad. And I know this is going to make my amp sound completely different. I'm joking. It's not going to make my amp sound different probably at all to the normal everyday human sense of hearing. Somebody could say that, oh yes, the power tubes do make a difference. Well, the power tubes don't necessarily make the difference. It's the power tubes plus, it's a multivariant sort of interactive system, right? So tubes by themselves really don't do anything, and power tubes are just that. They're power tubes. They power things. They're not really intended to color per se, but the interaction between the power tubes, the power amp, the power tubes, the speaker cabinet, the speakers in the cabinet, the speaker's response, and all of that together is, one system, and the power tubes do play a role in that. But it's not just the power tubes. As you've probably read elsewhere, that if you were really, really interested in changing the sound of your amplifier, if you wanted to make a huge difference in your sound, replace your speakers or replace your cabinet. That makes a much, much bigger difference. If you have access to anything where you can swap out the cabinets, virtual cabinets, then you quickly realize the massive, radical difference that a different cabinet and a different speaker make on your overall tone, even if the amplifier is the same. You just keep swapping out cabinets and you realize it's just such a huge difference. So to believe that the power tubes are going to make a huge difference is really, that's snake oil territory. Anyway, power tubes are back in. I'm going to go ahead and put the plate back on. Put this back on. All right, that was all the screws. I'm going to put these from the Tube Amp Doctor. These are the old tubes. Yeah, so the old tubes say from the Tube Amp Doctor, red base, trademark, probably because they have a red base. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in the Tung Sol boxes just to have someplace safe to put them. All right, so now I'm going to put my amplifier back in its place. All right, now we carefully put the amplifier back. All right, this is always a tricky little bit of business here. The amplifier's a bit heavy. It is a beast. First order of business is we hook up the foot switch. I can't remember what I normally, I think I go 16 normally. 16 ohms. I better double check that on my aux. The USB right output, the left output. The built-in Captor X. All right, then carefully it's back in, reconnect the power. Alrighty, got everything plugged back in. Get my seat here. All right. I use in the studio here. I use a drum throne because it doesn't have a back on it. It doesn't have any armrests, so nothing gets in the way. And it kind of also forces me to use better posture. TMI. All right, we're back. Amplifier in good shape. The power tubes are working just fine. We have proof of life here by... Let's put a little delay on that. The Keeley Halo. All right, let's do a little bit of lead guitar part. Lead guitar. I had to do that. Had to do that. So that's it. Thank you for joining me. Power tubes are in. Amplifier sounds good. All is well in amplifier land. Join me next time when I do more crazy shenanigans and blab around about stuff that's probably not very interesting. But if you tuned in, more power to you and kudos to you. Thank you.